Hey Axis and Allies players, the good captain here, and welcome to a new playthrough of Axis and Allies, or a third-party variant known as East and West. This was given a proper introduction on my primary channel, and I'll link that video in the description box below. I'm going to be playing against a human opponent. In fact, it's the same fellow who I mentioned in that video. His name's the Janus on the forums. He is taking the USSR, and I will be taking the side of NATO, which is the Western Europeans in gray, the UK, the tan, and of course USA in green. The rule set for this game is the original rule set for the most part. It's 3rd edition classic rules, and so I'm not going to go over too much about that. I'll just make little notes and mentions as things go on, because of course this third-party variant has some differences even from that rule set, but that is the core rule set we'll be operating with. So he and I have played many games of this. I'd like to think we're both seasoned players, so you should see at least fairly polished play. The first thing that occurs in this game is a pre-game bid. There's 20 IPCs that the Russians can spend. This ends up being spent on what amounts to 10 infantry, since the Soviets, one of their special abilities is that their infantry only costs 2. So this is a lot like the Axis and Allies original Europe from 1999, where both sides got a 12 IPC bid to spend on whatever they want and place it on the board. You can essentially do the same thing here. And my opponent places 2 infantry in Yugoslavia, 2 infantry in Romania, 3 infantry in Karelia, 2 infantry in Turkmenistan, and 1 infantry over here in North Korea. Okay, so that's what this screen shows. Okay, let's move to the purchase. Excuse me. The Soviets start with 52 IPCs and they spend that on 26 infantry. Again, this is an unsurprising purchase. And we'll jump to the combat move. So those blue arrows are just movements without attack. The red arrows obviously are moving into spaces where an attack is going to occur. But anyway, I'll translate this for you. Don't get scared off here. What we have is 5 infantry, 1 heavy armor, and a fighter attacking Norway, where there's 3 infantry. We have this mass of armor and infantry hitting West Germany. I'm not going to go through that one. There's a ton of pieces. We have what amounts to 6 infantry, 3 armor, 1 heavy armor, and a fighter attacking Greece. And heavy armor attacks on 4, defense on 3, so it's like a super tank. Turkey is spared. Otherwise, this is a fairly stock move out on the west. In the Middle East, we have an attack on Pakistan. 3 infantry and a fighter taking on 1 infantry. And we have the units in North Korea attacking South Korea with a bunch of air support. Okay, that's it on the land side. On the sea side, we have the Soviet Pacific Fleet, and there's really no way. The Soviet fleet is... their days are numbered, so it's really a matter of what strategic gains can you make in the first couple turns, and what damage can you inflict. What kind of tactical damage can you inflict. So over here we have 2 transports, 2 subs, and 2 cruisers. And he decides to pitch some of that fleet into the sea zone of Guam, where there's an American sub. So yeah, this is classic rules, so the subs are very interesting in this game. They're not very interesting in classic like they are here. The prevalence of submarines here really exercises that oft-forgotten part of Axis and Allies Classic. It's kind of cool. One of the things I kind of like about it. The subs get some play in this game. And their naval assets in the west, divide and conquer. They have a sub in the Baltic Sea, otherwise, it's 2 subs, a cruiser, and a transport up here in the Barents Sea. And they split their attack. 2 subs and a cruiser against 1 sub off of Iceland, and 1 sub and a transport against this slightly larger American fleet. So I'm just going to jump to the results and briefly discuss what the battle calculators said was the best end result. So in Norway, there was really the biggest question was, are we going to score 2 hits or just 1 hit? And we only scored 1 as the Western. My side, NATO, scored 1 hit, not 2. So we're down 0.5. We're down half a piece. I'm going to skip Western Germany because that ends up being quite dramatic. And in Greece, it was much the same. There's a fighter here, an armor. Okay, we're not going to go through this massive stuff, but just suffice to say, we shot down, I believe, 1.25 or something like that. Anyway, we shot down a whole piece here. In Pakistan, despite being attacked by 3 infantry and a fighter, this actually went to a second round before the British infantry was destroyed, and in both rounds the British got a hit, so this ends up being just 1 infantry securing Pakistan. Okay, and then penultimate combat here before we go back to West Germany was in South Korea. And here again, I guess the American pieces this time, they failed to secure all of their hits. They missed their numbers by, again, 1.25 pieces. So NATO forces performed well in Pakistan, not so well in Greece, South Korea, Norway. But it's in West Germany where I'm not going to lay this all out. It's just going to take too much time. But this is always a big opening battle. It's like taking out France in G40 with Germany. And this went not so great for the Soviets. They ended up with 3.5 pieces less than they should have. So when it comes to the end of the turn and we clean it all up and the Soviets place their units, this is how we look. We have I should have gone through the naval results. So off of Guam, the Soviet Navy submarines actually torpedo my sub, so it doesn't even get to fight back, and they just non-combat transport. So there's this shield of Soviet boats almost completely surrounding Japan, and this basically prevents any counterattack on South Korea on turn 1. That's the strategic edge of this maneuver. At least that's what I understand it to mean. I've done something like that myself. Okay, and over here in the west, the Soviet fleet is broken up into 2 parts as well. Although the American sub did not go down, so I had him retreat to the sea zone off of Ireland here. One thing I forgot is that the Soviets and the Americans each get a free tech roll at the beginning, and tech is force-fed into 4 different channels. So you can buy a tech dice for 5 IPCs, or you can just use the free one. But you only can put 1 dice roll per tech tree, and I think that this was the answer. If this is probably the answer to the problem that people had with the original Axis and Allies, that basically you needed to get a 6, and then you rolled randomly to get whatever tech you got on the 6 techs that were available. Well, here there's 12 techs, but they're broken into trees, so you have to push up through the tech tree. You can't just all of a sudden get something. You have to declare, I'm buying a token or I'm buying a dice for the submarine tech tree, and the only thing you can get, you only can make at most 1 breakthrough on this tree. You can only buy 1 dice per tree per turn, so it's a very controlled tech tree. I really like this, but the Soviets start out with heavy armor, as mentioned earlier, and the Americans start out with fission weapons, which is basically the nuke. They even have one on the board. We'll get to in the next video. But the Soviets did manage. So you're not just looking for 1s. A 2 puts you halfway to the next tech, so that on a 1 or a 2 on your next turn, you'll make the breakthrough. So again, I think this is probably the best answer I've seen to what people called the problem of Axis and Allies Classic Tech, which I just can't believe there was such an issue with that. But anyway, when it comes to deploying infantry, you can put infantry units in the territory up to the IPC value of that territory. So my opponent drops all his infantry in territories in Eastern Europe and closer towards the Middle East, and then of course fortifies positions in Kamchatka, North Korea. Okay, so that's that. Collects 63. That's just from territories, but also these blue territories are China, and China starts out in support of the Russians. So they're on this little chart here, this diplomatic chart, which we can influence, and we'll get to that in a later video. There's probably some activity here at a certain point in this game. But yeah, the Chinese start out supporting the Soviets with 4 IPCs and letting them use their territories. As a NATO player, I cannot attack China. I cannot attack any neutral, basically ever, unless the Soviets have taken it over. The Soviets don't have to obey neutrality. But that's why you see this bomber and this infantry in here. They're essentially unattackable. I cannot go in there and get them. But we can influence this diplomatic chart, and that's, of course, what we're going to be trying to do here eventually. Get the Chinese to stop supporting them and eventually kick them out and kick them out of the country and not let them use this as a safe space. Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to perform what I consider to be, at least for me, the stock move for Western Europe. We're going to play through this one. I'm going to close this video, and then I'll start another video where I go over the UK and USA response to the Soviet first turn. But let's pull open the chart pieces. So the first thing, so we have 32 IPCs. All right, let me show you where that is. The IPC is here, 32. Okay, and we're going to purchase what's called a SPY, and that's just, it costs 10 IPC, so we're going to be down to 22, and with the rest we're going to buy 7 infantry. I'm going to explain what a SPY is and does later. And that's 21. So we have 1 IPC remaining. Okay. Then we're gonna move to the combat move. And here I already kind of orchestrated what I want to do off screen, so I'm just gonna very quick pause, draw my arrows, and then review my attacks. Okay, I've gone ahead and drawn the arrows, so now I'm just gonna move the pieces so we can kind of see what's going on. First and most simply, I have an attack coming out of Italy. I have 2 infantry in here. I'm going to send in 1 into Yugoslavia. And then I'm going to take the armor that's also here, the Western European armor, and send it into Yugoslavia. Now this would normally be a very subpar move in any other version of Axis and Allies, but in East and West, armor moves just like fighters and bombers do. In other words, they can save their movement. And so in the non-combat movement phase, any unspent movement can be continued to be used. So we can essentially pull back. We can secure the territory and then pull back. So this is a bit of a thin attempt to remove this infantry, pick up 2 IPCs, and leave a blocker in Yugoslavia. So we have that, and then the much more elaborate attack against the Soviet fleet in the Black Sea. This fleet didn't move. It really couldn't, because Turkey has the Dardanelles Strait here, and the rule, of course, is, ownership of Turkey is required to move through it unless you're using a sub. But since we still own Turkey at the top of our turn here, we're going to send in this Western European sub south of France. We're going to send in this Western European cruiser south of Italy. We're going to send in the Turkish fighter. And believe it or not, we're going to send in the French fighter. 1, 2 south of Italy, 3 into the Black Sea. And then it can either land in Turkey, which it's not going to do, of course, but we're going to land on this UK carrier south of Italy, as you can see here. And finally, we're going to take the Western European bomber and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that's it. Let's go to combat. Okay, so we're going to resolve the Yugoslavia combat first, and I have no illusions about the risk that I'm taking by conducting this combat without a second infantry piece. The only reason I'm doing so is because the USA also can actually perform this attack much better. So I'm doing this for 3D level chess reasons. I like that too, because it will make a nice round 27. 27 is 9 infantry with that dollar left over. Anyway, that's just how weird I am about this game. So I like that idea. I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with it not working out. There's a 58% chance we get the kill in the first round of combat. There's an 81% chance we get the kill overall, and that's factoring in the fact that I'm going to retreat. If I don't kill him and he kills me, I'm not going to risk the armor by itself, of course. So off we go. We're going to use a independent dice roller because onboard. There is no onboard dice roller for that program. So we have Western Europe attacks Yugoslavia, round 1, 1 inf, 1 armor. Let's see if we get him. Snake Eyes. Yeah, so he's double dead. So there's no question that we have the territory. The question now is, do we have a blocker there, or do we have enough? Do we have to push in another during the NCM or during the non-combat movement phase? Sorry. So, okay, I went ahead and did that off screen. So we roll the Soviet infantry, and he misses. So we'll go back to the screen. Delete the Soviet infantry. We're gonna, here's the little roundel for the Western Europeans, is this funny little symbol. And that's it, we're done. No, we need to move the IPC chart. Move the Western Europeans from 24 to 26 and the Soviets down to 57. Okay, and now this big bad naval battle here. Let's just put this out so everybody can see it, because this has actually got a lot of pieces, especially for a Navy fight, a mostly Navy fight. So we have 2 fighters and a bomber, a cruiser which attacks it too, and the sub which attacks it too as well, but it is a surprise strike against these 3 boats. Okay. So this is 14 pips on the dice. I'm expecting this Western European attack to net 2 hits. If we net 3, that's fine. I just need... They better get 2. And I expect to take 1 hit in return. 2 hits could happen, but that would be most unfortunate and outside the laws of probability by some margin, but we'll see. Okay, so in this case, we're going to call this Western Europe Attacks Black Sea Round 1A, and that's because we have to roll the submarine before anything else, and we have to roll it separate. So, do we get a surprise strike? No, we don't. We move to general combat. Okay, we load it up. This is round 1B. We have a cruiser that attacks on a 2, 2 fighters at 3, and a bomber at 4. So let's see what we get. The fighters both hit. So there's the 2 hits we were expecting. The cruiser and the bomber both, they missed. Okay, I'm going to line these units back up in the Black Sea, and then send my opponent the photo to select his kills. Whenever you're playing online, I don't think it's good for the attacker to assume anything, and especially in this case with a defending submarine, because that is, he can select these 2 surface ships and then say his boat is submerging. So yeah, we need to take a quick pause. Well, for me it's a pause, for you it'll be instantaneous. Let's find out his casualty selection. Okay, my opponent decides to lose the transport and submarine to keep the best defensive value unit, the cruiser. So now we'll roll back. A transport, a submarine, and a cruiser. No hits. No hits. So it's too bad for the Russians. In this case, of course, we go for a round 2, so we have a submarine surprise strike first. So same thing, just round 2A. Let's go ahead and roll it. And this ends the combat. The submarine surprise strike was successful. Yeah, that was really surprising. I thought for certain I would take at least 1 hit, so much so that I didn't even account for the fact that the Soviets are likely to secure Turkey on their next turn, thereby trapping this cruiser. But okay, no big deal. Let's continue, and we will do the non-combat movement phase. And we're just gonna go ahead, like the combat movement phase. I'll draw the arrows and then do a quick review. Okay, I've gone ahead and placed all the arrows, and now I'll just move the pieces. This transport comes off the Bay of Biscay down to this sea zone, loads up this infantry, and then moves south of France, and then loads into France. This colonial troop moves into Algeria, and then we're going to stage a mini Dunkirk off the, this I didn't mark. We're going to do a little mini Dunkirk with Turkey and just evacuate who we can get out of there with this transport. So the highest IPC value is 2 infantry. And that's the most in demand unit. So we'll just scoot in, scoot out, and drop off 2 in Italy. Okay, and then finally we have the east side of the map, where our Indo-Chinese troops move to Burma, and the fighter moves to India, and this transport moves down to New Guinea, and I think that's every piece accounted for. I'll do a quick gloss over. Should return all the units from the big naval battle. This fighter has to land on this British carrier or Turkey. Obviously, it's the British carrier. The other fighter that came off of Turkey can go all the way back to France, as can the bomber. Okay, so let's clean this up, place our units, and close this video. One last NCM non-combat move was this tank falling back to Italy. Okay, now placement. Cleaned up the map. So this is how we look after everybody has returned / non-combat moved, and we're gonna drop these 7 infantry right into Italy. There's an industrial complex there, and 4 IPC value territory. So okay, one other adjustment I'm going to make. I'm going to have this armor down in Italy as well, so we'll have 2 armor down there. Yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. I changed my mind. So the last thing we need to do is place this spy, and so we take the Western European token and we just drop it down into this box, and again we'll discuss that when it's relevant next. We collect 26 IPCs, and we have 1 left over for a nice even 27. And that closes this turn. If this was interesting to you, and if you want to see how the UK and the USA respond to the USSR first turn, please check out the next video. Thanks for watching. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.